if I hand you a calculator and ask you what 5 minus 3 is, you don't feel a sudden rush of guilt, right?
I mean, just two. It's totally neutral.
Exactly. It's pure math. But if you do that exact same math inside your bank account, like subtracting $3 to buy a cup of coffee, suddenly it's this massive emotional landmine.
Oh, yeah. It completely
Yeah.
shifts.
Right. It's no longer just subtraction. It feels like a referendum on your safety, your future, and like your self-worth. So why is our money math so incredibly broken?
Well, it's because we're dealing with two completely different systems there. The calculator is pure logic, but your brain processes financial decisions through the amygdala.
The amygdala, that's the emotional, like, threat detecting center, right?
Exactly. It's always scanning for danger.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at a budget, your prefrontal cortex thinks you're just doing math, but neurologically, you are literally navigating survival instincts.
Wow. And that disconnect between the logical numbers and our emotional reality is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive.
It's such a crucial topic.
It really is. And we're looking at this deeply personal reflection written by a woman named Jasmine. She basically took a magnifying glass to her own turbulent relationship with money after reading this really unique book.
Yeah, The Mindful Wallet.
Right, The Mindful Wallet, Transforming Your Money Story with Mindfulness and CBT.
And the authors of this book bring such a fascinating dual perspective. You've got Lim Hui Hui, who is a certified financial life planner.
So the spreadsheet side of things.
Exactly. And she's teamed up with Dr. Fang Cheng Carr, who is a mindfulness-based psychiatrist.
Which is such a brilliant combo.
It really is. It's a literal blueprint for what happens when financial literacy is treated as a mental health issue. And, what's really critical to establish right away is the CBT part of that title.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes, because CBT isn't just like sitting on a couch talking about your feelings. It is a clinical, active practice. It's about identifying those automatic subconscious thoughts like sending money is dangerous, and then systematically breaking the link between that trigger and the emotional panic.
Which is so vital because Jasmine's reflection really shows us that you can't just, spreadsheet your way out of financial anxiety.
No, you really can't. The math won't save you if the mindset is broken.
Exactly. So our mission today is to trace Jasmine's journey. We want to go from her childhood to adulthood to see how these invisible money scripts get hardwired into our brains, usually by our well-meaning parents, and how we can rewire them without losing our respect for where those lessons actually came from.
Because that respect is key. It requires an intense level of self-awareness to look at your financial habits and recognize that, hey, my bank account is basically being managed by the ghost of a terrified child.
Ah, that is such a powerful way to put it. So let's explore how that ghost actually gets created. Jasmine takes us back to her childhood, growing up in a highly constrained financial environment.
Things were very tight.
Very tight. And her mother, out of pure fierce necessity, instilled these specific rules. She had 5 main ones. She taught Jasmine that they didn't have much, so every cent had to be spent carefully.
Right, highly guarded.
Yeah. And she hammered home that money is incredibly hard to earn. She insisted on buying only absolute necessities, saving everything else, and this is a big one. She drew a hard line that no matter how poor they were, they would never, ever borrow money from anyone.
Now, we really have to view those rules through the lens of extreme empathy.
For sure.
Because Jasmine's mother wasn't trying to be restrictive just for the fun of it. She was handing her daughter a survival toolkit.
Yeah, she was protecting her.
Exactly. When you are living on the edge of poverty, a single bad financial decision doesn't just mean like a bounced check. It can mean a catastrophic loss of shelter or food. The mother was operating in crisis mode, just doing everything in her power to make sure her family stayed afloat.
I completely see the protective intent there.
Right.
But here's where I kind of have to push back a little, or at least play devil's advocate.
Okay, go for it.
Isn't that just objectively good financial advice? Like, save for a rainy day, buy only what you need, don't go into debt. Any financial advisor today would applaud those rules, right?
It absolutely would.
So how can a parent teach basic financial responsibility without accidentally traumatizing their kid? Like, why did these practical lessons leave Jasmine feeling so deeply afraid, constantly wondering why they were poor, and feeling inferior to her friends?
That is the core paradox of generational financial trauma right there.
A paradox.
Yeah. The advice itself is totally sound, but children don't just absorb the vocabulary of a lesson, They absorb the emotional frequency underneath it.
Oh, wow. The emotional frequency.
Exactly. When Jasmine's mother taught her to save, Her nervous system was likely flooding with cortisol. She was stressed, she was exhausted, and she was fearful.
So Jasmine was picking up on the fear, not just the words.
Precisely. Jasmine's young brain didn't just record the rules, save money. Her amygdala, that threat detection center we talked about, recorded the association. Money equals existential dread.
It's almost like a form of financial autoimmunity.
Oh, I like that. How do you mean?
Well, like, her mother gave her this highly active immune system to fight off poverty. And the immune system is technically doing its job by keeping her hypervigilant. But it sounds like the trauma isn't in the rule itself, but in that ambient anxiety surrounding the rule.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The practical rules formed this protective shell, but inside that shell, the emotional core was entirely driven by a sense of lack. And this forms the foundation of her money script.
Right, the invisible script.
Yeah, a money script is basically a subconscious rulebook that dictates how we interact with wealth. For Jasmine, the script was totally binary. Saving means you might survive. Spending means you are in immediate, life-threatening danger.
So if the root of the trauma is a literal lack of money in childhood, the logical assumption is that getting a paycheck solves the problem.
Right, you think so?
The math changes, so the trauma should vanish. And when Jasmine entered her early working life, she got a job, she started earning her own income, and her objective financial reality shifted. It went from scarcity to stability.
But the anxiety didn't go away, did it?
No, it actually got worse. When she bought things for herself, even things she could easily afford, she was completely consumed by guilt. She was perpetually terrified of losing her job and constantly felt her savings were never enough.
Yeah.
So why does financial security sometimes trigger more panic?
Because the script is entirely divorced from the math. Remember your autoimmunity metaphor?
Yeah.
Once Jasmine was safe and making good money, that hyperactive immune system had nothing real to fight anymore. So it just started attacking her own well-being every single time she swiped her card.
Oh, man. That's exhausting.
It really is. This is where cognitive dissonance comes into play. Her logical prefrontal cortex knows she has the funds, right? But her amygdala is still running that panicked childhood script.
It's still treating a $5 purchase like a literal threat to her survival. And it wasn't just her internal monologue either. Her mother's voice was still actively shaping this reality.
Right, those ingrained sayings.
Yeah, Jasmine highlights 3 specific sayings her mother used a lot during this time. The first was, "No money, no talk."
Which is heavy.
Yeah. Her mom used it jokingly, but the underlying message was that the world is completely unforgiving if you are broke. The second was this relentless drumbeat to save for a rainy day, particularly pushing fixed deposits as, like, the only safe harbor.
And the third?
The third was, money isn't everything, but it can make many things easier.
Okay, let's analyze the psychological weight of those 3 phrases combined, because no money, no talk reinforces the idea that poverty strips you of your voice.
Huh.
It strips your agency.
You literally don't matter if you're broke.
Right. Then, save for a rainy day, assumes that a catastrophic storm is always imminent. It makes it impossible to ever just enjoy a sunny day.
You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. And the idea that money makes things easier frames wealth solely as a defensive shield against hardship. It's never framed as a tool for joy or experiences or self-actualization.
That defensive posture explains the guilt perfectly. Because if you view every dollar as a brick in this fortress wall that's keeping the rainy day out, taking a brick out to buy a nice dinner feels totally reckless.
It feels like you are intentionally making a hole in your own armor.
Yes. She noted that she was happy when she gave money to her parents because that reinforced the family fortress. But spending on herself felt like a betrayal of the survival protocol.
Because the stakes just feel artificially high. And this perfectly illustrates why simply earning a higher salary rarely cures deep-seated financial anxiety.
It doesn't fix the script.
Exactly. When your script equates spending with danger, having more money just means you have more to lose. The fear of falling from a higher ladder is often way more paralyzing than just standing on the ground.
Oh, that's such a good point. And that brings a completely different gravity to what happens next. If managing her own safety felt like standing on a high ladder, becoming a parent meant she was suddenly balancing someone else on that ladder with her.
Oh, parenthood is the ultimate trigger for protective instincts.
Right. When Jasmine transitioned into parenthood, her financial anxiety morphed into an absolute pressure cooker.
Because the vulnerability expands exponentially. You aren't just worrying about yourself anymore.
And the script evolved to meet that new vulnerability. Her mother, who was still this profound influence, heavily emphasized one specific rule for this new phase. No matter how poor we are, we must never neglect education.
Which is a very common, very strong cultural value.
Absolutely. To her mother, education was the ultimate safety net. It was the one thing no one could ever take away from her grandchildren.
Which is an immensely beautiful and powerful legacy. I mean, the mother successfully passed down the value of education, the importance of long-term planning, and just a formidable work ethic. We really have to honor that these are profound generational gifts.
I completely agree. The intention is undeniably pure. But the execution created this awful paradox for Jasmine. Her anxiety shifted gears. Now, instead of just feeling guilty for buying herself a coffee, she was haunted by the fear that she wasn't saving enough for her children's future.
The target of the anxiety moved.
Yes, she felt totally insecure, fully convinced that whatever she had amassed was inadequate. The guilt of spending any money on herself rather than funneling it into her family just became overwhelming. So her mother's gift of prioritizing education accidentally became a trap.
And this is exactly where we see the danger of an unexamined script. A script's primary function is to scan the horizon for threats.
Right.
When Jasmine was single, the threat was losing her job. Now the threat is failing her children. And because the script says you are always in danger, her brain selectively ignores all evidence to the contrary.
It just filters out the good stuff.
Totally. It ignores her actual savings. It ignores her stable income. It ignores the fact that she's actively providing a good life right now. It blinds her to her actual financial stability.
It traps her in a future that hasn't even happened yet. Like, she is so busy trying to aggressively fund the year 2040 that she is completely robbing herself of the year she is actually living in.
It steals the present moment. And, this is the psychological toll of equating love with financial sacrifice.
Wow, equating love with sacrifice.
Yeah. When a parent operates under the script that good parenting means agonizing over every penny, financial peace actually feels like negligence.
That is wild.
If Jasmine isn't worrying, her script tells her she isn't doing her job as a mother.
That is a staggering realization, that relaxing actually feels like a dereliction of duty.
It's heartbreaking, really.
Which makes her eventual breakthrough so incredibly necessary. It's one thing to recognize you are miserable. It's another entirely to figure out how to rewire a brain that has been operating on this survival code for decades.
Right. Awareness is just the first step.
Exactly. Which brings us to Jasmine's present-day reflection. She isn't in a therapist's office having this breakthrough. She is sitting at the Jingzi Book Cafe in Puchong. She has a cup of tea, and she's reading her copy of The Mindful Wallet.
The setting is actually quite important there.
How so?
Well, she's engaging in an intentional pause. She is physically stepping out of the frantic momentum of her daily life to just observe her own mind.
And in that pause, she achieves this incredible clarity. She realizes that her relationship with money isn't a math problem. It's not about finding a better fixed deposit rate.
No, not at all.
Her entire financial reality is a construct. It's built from her family's history, her absorbed emotions, and those repeated childhood messages. And she takes all of this and synthesizes it into this brilliant, highly actionable, 4-part formula for rewriting her story.
Let's analyze the mechanics of that formula because it perfectly encapsulates the clinical approach advocated by Lim Hui Hui and Dr. Feng Shankar in the book.
Okay, here is how she breaks it down. Part 1. Her mother taught her how to save.
Acknowledging the foundation.
Right. Part 2. Mindfulness helps her become aware of her thoughts and emotions. Part 3. CBT helps her actively rewrite the script. And Part 4. Compassion helps her make these changes with kindness.
It is honestly a masterclass in psychological integration. Let's look at how mindfulness and CBT work together in this specific context.
Yeah, break that down for us.
So mindfulness is the diagnostic tool. It is the practice of observing your own thoughts without immediately reacting to them. So when Jasmine is about to buy something for herself, mindfulness allows her to notice the sudden spike in her heart rate.
Oh, like catching the physical symptom first.
Exactly. It allows her to say, my chest is tightening and my brain is screaming that I am a bad mother for spending this money.
She is basically catching the ghost in the act. She is seeing the old code run in real time.
Precisely. But once you catch the thought, you can't just ignore it. That is where cognitive behavioral therapy comes in as the intervention tool.
So mindfulness spots it, CBT fixes it.
Yes. CBT forces the logical brain to demand evidence. The script says, spending this money will ruin our future. CBT asks, Okay, what is the objective mathematical evidence that this $50 purchase threatens my child's education?
You are forcing the prefrontal cortex back online to overrule the panicked amygdala. You look at the actual bank balance, you see the emergency fund, and you consciously conclude, I am safe. This purchase does not compromise my family.
It breaks the loop. And over time, consistently challenging that automatic thought actually rewires the neural pathway. You teach your brain that the trigger spending money no longer leads to the catastrophic outcome.
It's basically exposure therapy for your wallet.
That's exactly what it is.
But the piece of her formula that really strikes me is that final one, compassion. This is what elevates her approach from a sterile psychological exercise to something deeply human.
Compassion is so vital.
It really is. She isn't rejecting her mother's lessons. She isn't looking back in anger and blaming her mom for traumatizing her. She is holding on to the discipline, the gratitude, and the independence her mother gave her while gently excising the anxiety.
Because compassion is the solvent that dissolves the resentment.
Oh, I love that phrasing.
It's true. If you try to change your financial habits through sheer willpower while harboring anger toward your parents for their mistakes, you remain tethered to the trauma.
You're still fighting them in your head.
Right. Compassion allows Jasmine to look at her mother and say, you did the absolute best you could with the terrifying circumstances you were handed.
Yeah.
Your rules kept us alive.
Yeah.
But I am safe now, so I can put the armor down.
She is updating the software so it matches her current reality, not her mother's past reality. It's so powerful because it validates both the mother's struggle and Jasmine's right to peace.
It bridges the gap beautifully.
It really does. And it shows us that financial literacy without emotional literacy is incomplete. Like, you can know exactly how compound interest works, but if your nervous system is trapped in 1995, you will never actually enjoy the wealth you build.
Absolutely. The numbers in the bank account do not dictate your peace of mind. The script in your head does. And by combining the financial planning aspects with the psychiatric tools of mindfulness and CBT, the mindful wallet addresses the entire ecosystem of wealth.
It's just such a remarkable journey. We watched a young child absorb the heavy existential dread of a mother just trying to keep her family fed. We saw how that absorbed dread morphed into a young adult's paralyzing guilt over spending her own hard-earned paycheck. And then we explored that cruel irony of how the beautiful gift of valuing education turned into a mother's suffocating anxiety that she could never provide enough.
And ultimately, we saw the mechanics of how to break that cycle, not by burning the old rulebook, but by reading it objectively, thanking it for its service, and consciously writing a new chapter.
We started this deep dive talking about calculators and how financial decisions are never just neutral math. We carry our history, our parents' fears, and our own survival instincts into every single transaction.
Every swipe of the card.
Exactly. So as you navigate your own financial landscape today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
And exercising your own mindfulness.
Yes. Close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving, obviously, and try to hear the single most common phrase your parents repeated about money when you were growing up.
That's a good one.
Was it, money doesn't grow on trees? Was it, we aren't the kind of people who can afford that? Or maybe it was just a heavy sigh every time the bills were opened. Dig up that specific memory. Now look at your life today and ask yourself, is that invisible phrase secretly acting as the script running your wallet right now?
Chances are it might be.
And if it is it finally time to sit down, look at the evidence, and rewrite it with a little compassion?